Hey guys, I'm super excited about this one because, I got my first four-wheel drive back in 1989, 1990, and my first car was a 68 Firebird, my second car was a 79 K5 Blazer, and that, being an outdoors guy, got into the outdoors when I was a little kid, and that just opened up whole new worlds for me. And anyway, Toyota 3.0 engine in the late 80s through the mid 90s. Is it any good? Is it durable? And how do you make it last? So it gets a lot of flack on the forums and things like that, on Facebook groups and things like that. So is that accurate? Is it true? And what can you do to make it not true? This is my 1992 4Runner, and I have 315,000 miles on it, and the head gasket recall was done, I don't know, long time ago, probably 15-20 years ago, before I got it. And I've had this thing for over 10 years now, and I've had no problem. So the big complaint is head gaskets, right? The head gasket going primarily in the back of the passenger side. The short answer is yes, it can be an issue, and no, it doesn't need to be an issue. And we'll talk about why that is. But otherwise, this motor and the 22R, 22RE were both derived from agricultural engines. They're not super powerful, they're not super great on the highway, that's not what they were made for, but they are designed to last a long time. And both of these engines will last a long time if you take care of them. And as evidenced by, some of you in the Rust Belt and stuff, there's not many of these around because they rusted out. It wasn't because the engines were bad. And the drier states, non-snow states, non-salt, road salt states, these things are everywhere still, and they're still running. So there's not too many other makes and models that have so many of these on the road still. And from 25 years ago. And so they're good. And probably shouldn't be telling you any of this because the overlanding craze has made first gen 4Runners, which are now collector status, go way up in price. Third gens way up in price. Land Cruiser 80s and 100s and Lexus all way up in price. Second gens, those years, pickup trucks and 4Runners with the 3.0, they're the secret bargain, the bargain secret of them all. So let's get to it. Why have I not had any problems with mine, other than usual maintenance and stuff and a few little fix-its here and there? But I haven't had the head gasket issue. I haven't had anything like that. And maybe I'm lucky, but there's tricks and tips to keeping any car, especially these, running a long time. Let's start off first with engine oil. Oil does more than lubricate. It also cools the engine and stuff. And the properties of the oil, keeping the oil topped off and keeping it changed helps keep the engine cool. It gets full of crud, it starts to inhibit its ability to cool and, of course, lubricate and circulate and things like that. So the oil splashing around in there and going through all the oil tubes takes heat out of the engine and down into the oil pan. And it also helps move the heat around so the cooling system can pick it up from one spot to another. So, number one is, and this is something I see on Facebook, Toyota groups all the time, and I'm going to tell you, just to be honest, is if you want advice on your car, don't go to Facebook. Just don't. There's so much, I'd say 90% of the advice is bad or flat out wrong. And so go to other forums and things like Yoda Tech, things like that. You'll find much better answers, and you can search through, and you can find people who already had the problems you do and how it's been solved. So the forums are a much better place. So that's number one. Number two is if you're going to have an older vehicle, learn how to work on it yourself. It'll save you a lot of money, and you won't feel bad paying a mechanic to put tons of money into a car that is old and didn't cost you a lot to buy, right? Who wants to put $2,000, $3,000 into a car they bought for $2,000? And third, maybe have a good mechanic on standby just in case, but one that's fair pricing, that does good diagnosis, that doesn't just change out parts. You know, a lot of mechanics nowadays, they get an idea of what's wrong, what the computer tells them, they start swapping out parts. That's not the way to fix a car and save your customers money and do a good job. So at least have enough knowledge so that you know what your mechanic is telling you, if it's BS or not, and if you need to go somewhere else, right? So engine oil, yes. Make sure you use the weight recommended by the manufacturer. They designed the engine, they decided that weight for a reason. And why I thought of Facebook was guys saying this, that, whatever, and people suggesting use different weight oils for different things. You don't have to do that. If you're in extreme climate, you know, where it's really cold and really hot, it's something to think about. But maybe call Toyota, talk to them, find out what they suggest. Otherwise, go with the weight of oil that's specified by the manufacturer. That's really important for the proper lubrication, the clearances, the tolerances built into the engine, and also proper cooling. And you'll see cooling is a resounding theme with these engines. You got to keep them cool. So I use the Valvoline high mileage semi-synthetic now in this thing. They say anything over 75,000 miles. I've had really good luck with it. I have two cars, and combined they have well over 500,000 miles on them. And one's a 92, one's a 98. And I've been using that, and so far so good. So I would suggest that, and changing your oil is, I do, you know, everybody argues about it now, but I still do the old standby of every 3,000 miles. Part of the challenge of doing videos in town now. I don't live in the sticks anymore. Noise. I still do 3,000 miles every 3 months. At least, maybe more, depending on how I'm using it. But understanding you're off-roading, overlanding, that kind of stuff, that's extreme duty. You're doing a lot of driving. It's slow RPM, slow miles per hour. You're not getting a lot of cooling. You're getting dirt and dust and stuff in there, and things like that, you know, that's really hard on an engine. So there's times where I've done trips and I just had 2,000 miles, 1,000 miles on oil, and I came home and I changed it anyway. It's cheap insurance. It's not expensive. Do it yourself. It costs you 30 bucks, and it's really, you know, yeah, cheap insurance. Also use good filters. I like to use Toyota OEM. Sometimes the parts stores have bargains and stuff. There's a lot of videos out there about the internals of filters, and you'll see. Go watch some of those. People that rip apart the oil filters and see the difference inside. There is a big difference. And use OEM filters, use quality oil. The next thing, cooling system. Obviously the key to not blowing head gaskets, and the reason why head gaskets most likely blow, is due to bad design or heat issues. The 3.0 does have a exhaust heat crossover that runs behind the head on the left passenger side. Behind the head there, and it can make excess heat back there, but it doesn't really need to be a problem. Keep your cooling system in shape. So I recently changed out my radiator, and I went to a radiator shop and I got a replacement radiator that's copper like the original. It's also 3-core heavy duty like the original, and I went with that because it's what Toyota specified, and I don't like the newer aluminum ones with plastic tanks and stuff. I want all metal, all copper, conducts really well. My old one turned out to be bad, but I didn't know it. I went into the radiator shop because there was just like a few little tiny pinhole leaks, you know, not enough to even leak, but you could just see little crusties, you know, on there. And I thought, well, we could re-core it, maybe replace the tanks. And he called me back and said that it was so old, it was just shot, and he couldn't fix it. It was just cracking underneath, you know, the soldering iron. And so I replaced it, and even just replacing the radiator with replacing the old one that was still functioning, it runs a lot cooler now. So of course, keep all your hoses in shape and that kind of stuff. Coolant, again, go with the manufacturer specifications on whatever car you have. And there's arguments on using household tap water versus distilled water, something about distilled waters and the ions being wrong or something. I've always used it and never had a problem. You know, all the hard you know, hard water that comes out of your tap can clog up passages in your cooling system, but it would take a lot. But it can, you know, mainly in the radiator, those tiny passages, you know, that can get that calcium deposits. So I would avoid that, in my opinion. If you're worried about it, just get the pre-mixed coolant, and you'll be good to go. But yeah, follow manufacturer's specifications. I change out the coolant every 2 years, and also the radiator cap every 2 years. Why? Is because radiator caps don't even have to fail to not work properly, because the whole system operates under pressure, and as the water heats up, it creates pressure, and that raises the boiling point and allows the system to function properly without creating air bubbles and things like this, or gushing out. You know, we've probably all seen radiator caps that fail and the water comes out, coolant comes out. But even just that rubber seal around the inside can start to deteriorate, and it starts to let pressure out, and your cooling system's no longer functioning. So when I change my coolant, I put a new radiator cap on. I just throw out the old one, and so change out your coolant, flush it out good, get everything cleaned out, change the radiator cap every 2 years. You'll be good to go. Good hoses, make sure they're in good shape. If there's any bulging or anything like that, or they're getting hard at all, change them out. Any sign of cracking or anything out, change them out. You know, again, cheap insurance, and it's not hard to do. These are not that hard to work on. So, especially with those hoses are involved, it's not a big deal, and it's not that expensive. So, modifications. I suspect that a lot of people that have problems with these are people that modify their cars and don't do it properly. If you're going to lift these things and put big tires on it, it puts more strain on the engine, which is going to create more heat, right? And you're going to be more tempted, because of that strain and the more drag, to push on the gas more, which is going to create more heat. It's going to lower your efficiency and stuff like that. It's going to be harder on all of the driveline. And so re-gearing properly is important if you're going to do that. And even then, expect that when you do these kinds of things and add big tires and stuff, or add a lot of weight inside the car or something, it's going to put strain on it, and it's going to affect the longevity. And so even when I'm carrying a lot of weight, a bunch of camping gear or something, or have a load in there, I drive slow. You know, I don't mash the motor everywhere. So, you know, just be mindful of that. Be mindful of the modifications you're going to do. Engine modifications. Look, the 22R and the 3.0 are not fast engines. They're not designed for that. And so if you're expecting that, you're buying the wrong car. You know, first gen 4Runner, second gen, basically any Toyota from 1995 and earlier. If you want something fast and powerful, you're buying the wrong thing, or you need to do an engine swap. So, you know, kind of get that out of your mind, that it's not what it's about. It's about, you know, it's the tortoise and the hare. You're going to be the tortoise, but you're going to go forever if you take care of it properly. Engine modifications, a big one is, you know, cold air intakes and things like that. Most of that should be fine as long as you keep the stock systems in place so the computer can read everything properly. I don't personally like them too much. I don't think they filter as well, but, you know, to each his own. That's a matter of my opinion. I don't have a whole lot to back that up. I just change out the air filter a couple times a year and call it good. And after every trip I check it, you know, bang it, knock all that dust out, use the air compressor, blow it out, and it should be good to go. The big one though on these 3.0s is, you know, reading the forums and Facebook and stuff and talking to people, there's this obsession with deleting the EGR. And I think people get on this idea that like everybody's doing it, so I'm going to do it too. There must be some benefit there, and there just isn't. The only benefit is to you know, get rid of a broken EGR system, and you don't want to spend the money to fix it properly. So, you know, sorry, forgot to turn off my ringer. The EGR, there's a lot of reasons an EGR can go bad, and it's not because the valve itself is bad, right? So it doesn't mean you have to get rid of everything. You know, properly diagnose it. These 90s engines had a lot of vacuum hoses, so vacuum leaks are a big common thing. You know, some of the controller things, you know, make sure you clean off all the contacts and stuff like that. You know, make sure the computer's talking to it right. Things like that. So don't, you know, diagnose the problem first. Deleting the EGR will not give you more power, it will not give you more efficiency. It's designed to run with the EGR, these older engines, you know. And you know, I was talking to somebody who said, well, newer engines don't have them. Well, they're designed to not have them, right? The older ones are. And so you delete the EGR, and the EGR recirculates some gases back into the engine, and it does lower combustion temperatures. So by taking that out, you're raising combustion temperatures and also most likely causing the engine to run lean, which will make more heat and again blow out your head gasket maybe. So for longevity's sake, don't take out the EGR unless you have to. Diagnose the problem if you're having a problem with it. It might not be that expensive part, which is $100, you know, it's not really that bad. And so don't be cheap, you know, take care of the car, you know, use proper parts and don't be cheap. If you want to be cheap, then you're probably not watching this video because you don't care, right? But it will not increase your performance, it will not make more horsepower, it will not give you better gas mileage. In fact, it will do the opposite in all counts. It will also reduce the longevity of the engine in regards to the possibility of blowing out that head gasket. An EGR does not open up under full throttle or partial throttle anyway, it's closed, so it's the same thing as having it deleted, so it can't possibly change the power because it's functioning closed at that point. So it's the same as being blocked off. So yes, there's a lot of other things, and then the way the computer talks to it, you know, I know you put a resistor in there and fool the computer, but the computers on these things, the ECMs, you know, all work in conjunction with all the sensors to have the engine running properly. And you start messing with that and it can cause issues, and both efficiency and lifespan of the engine and other components. So yeah, that EGR one seems to be a big thing, and I would just not do that. And if it is broken, diagnose it properly, replace the parts that need to be fixed. So other than that, it's common, you know, just common maintenance. Another issue with these things is the fan brackets is not the cooling fan is not attached to the actual water pump like in a lot of engines. It's on a bracket, and the bearings can fail in those. I've had that happen to me, and you know, obviously if the fan's not turning, you have an issue on cooling. So that's a part that I definitely replace with OEM or Denso or things like that. Ignition components, use OEM, Denso, things like that. The Toyotas like that. They run much better with that. Same with sensors. Other things you can get by with aftermarket for the most part. Make sure your timing belt, you change that, you know, every 70,000-80,000 miles. It's a bit of a job, but it's not too bad. You know, again, learn to work on your own cars. It's $150, $200 job instead of $800 at the mechanic. So plugs, wires, rotor, we covered that. Use OEM. So we got spark, we got air filter, we have cooling, exhaust, we have the EGR. Don't take the catalytic converters out either. That's not gonna. These things are not gonna make a lot of power. It's just not gonna happen. So don't even worry about that. Keep it in there so everything's running properly. The computer is getting the right signals to run the engine properly. Other than that, you know, keep up on all your fluid changes and stuff like that. But this is, you know, if you guys are interested, I'll do another video more on maintenance on the Toyotas, especially in the early ones, and all the other fluids and other things that you should check regularly. So let me know in the comments below if you're interested in more information about taking care of, you know, 95 and earlier. Yeah, let me know. Drop a note in the comments if you want to see more on that kind of stuff. And I hope this video was helpful, and you know, getting out in the backcountry with your four-wheel drive is awesome, but you want it to be reliable, you want it to last, you don't want problems out there, because I'll tell you, recovering a vehicle from off-road out in those sticks is expensive or difficult, you know, and it's a big hassle. So I don't have any problems with mine. I off-road, you know, hundreds of miles probably each year, and I still drive it all throughout the western states. So in the last year or two, I've been through, you know, I live in California, I've been to Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Washington, Oregon, Utah, and Idaho, and put several thousand miles on the road and hundreds of miles off-road, and it doesn't even worry me. and with over 300,000 miles on the clock. So yes, these can be awesome trucks and awesome engines, unless you're pulling a lot of weight. You know, it's not going to be fast. You're not going to win a race. It's not a race car. You're not going to win a pulling thing, you know, up the mountains and stuff. You're going to have to downshift going up mountains and stuff. It's just the nature of the beast. So, you know, it's not the right car for you if you don't want to do that. But yeah, other than that, they're epic. They're fantastic, and they're super reliable. But you got to take care of it and monitor that cooling and stuff, and just do the maintenance, you know, and don't do silly modifications that are going to mess with that, you know. So before you do things like that, find out what you're talking about, what you're doing, and the whys and hows of it, and the results you're expecting, and is that realistic. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and you know, the old Toyotas are one of many great ways to get out into nature and out into the backcountry and enjoy yourselves and see things you wouldn't otherwise get to see, and get to places you wouldn't otherwise get to see just by hiking or mountain biking and stuff. So it's really exciting. It's a lot of fun. I encourage you to do it, and as always, be responsible out there. Clean up after yourself, tread lightly, and just don't make a mess, and don't abuse nature, and we'll all have all that open space without gates put up, because we're all being respectful of each other and everybody else's right to use it, and taking care of the environment and the views. So until next time, guys, drop me a like and drop me a comment. Let me know if you want more, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you much.